Have you ever wondered what yoga and photography have in common with mental health? Well, join me as I speak with my next guest and we dive in on both of these aspects and how he's making a difference where he works and in the mental health community. I'll see you on the inside on Real Talk. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with Renisha. Today we have an amazing guest, another amazing guest. And my guest today is Mr. Jared Pava, and he's hailing all the way from New York, New York. Some amazing city, you gotta say it twice. Jared is a yoga instructor and artist, and we've known each other for a couple of years. And this is like one of the first times that we're really going to get to sit down and have an amazing conversation about exactly what he does in his field of yoga, because it's yoga with a twist. Jared, welcome to Real Talk with Renisha.
Thank you, Renisha. It's great to be here. I'm very excited.
It's great to have you. I am so excited that you're here because we're talking about yoga. And I recently only learned that you are an artist. So I'm definitely want to dive in a little bit more on that, in the show as well. But I say yoga with a twist because our guests are going to learn how to do yoga for anxiety and depression. So we're going to dive right in, Jared, if you don't mind, because I am so excited to get started with you. And
Let's go.
awesome. My first question to you is, you are a yoga instructor by occupation. How long have you been an instructor thus far?
I've been teaching for 25 years.
Whoa, wow, that is amazing. So now, are you a yogi? What does that terminology mean to people like myself who doesn't really know about yoga?
Well, I guess I get the answer for that. Am I a yogi? Is I mean, most people I think who teach yoga are yogis. For women, it's yogini. It's just phrases. But I think also what that during my yoga training they went into like what does it mean to be a yogi and what comes up for me immediately is one of my directors of my yoga training said that yoga is a discipline and um, the word for discipline in Sanskrit, which is the ancient language of India, is sadhana. And so sadhana means spiritual discipline. And so before I did my yoga training, I had the approach to yoga like, oh, it's just something I'll do from here, there. One day I'll do it, the next day I won't. But for me, it's really become that. It's become a spiritual discipline. And when it became more of a spiritual discipline for me, then it changed my life a lot. Then I really started to see transformation.
Great. We got definitely want to talk a little bit about that. But so what inspired you? Like where did you hear about yoga? What inspired you? What made you say, okay, this is something that I think I'm going to do, something that I like to do? What inspired you to become a yoga instructor?
I was taking Friday night yoga classes in New York City for a while,
Okay.
and there were wonderful classes. There were classes in Kripalu yoga, which is what I'm certified in,
Okay.
and then I started seeing visions of hands, reoccurring every Friday night when I go to class. And when I was in relaxation, mostly when people are in relaxation, shavasana in yoga, a lot of things will come up, especially internal things like whether they're goals or whether they're things that you know a person should be doing in their life. Not should, but maybe what's the next thing that a person will do in their life. And so for me, I started seeing visions of hands, and it was very prominent. And it was Friday night after Friday night. And so I said, and I thought to myself, I was like, what should I do with this vision or feeling and an image, I mean,
Yeah.
actual image that I was seeing. And so I thought, you know what? I think I'm being given the message that I should teach. And that was at that point I decided to go for a certification at Kripalu up in Massachusetts.
Oh my gosh. Wow. You're
Yeah.
inspiring. So you saw, it's like you saw what you're supposed to be doing while just being, in your class. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it was very powerful. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely think so. In 25 years, wow, you know yoga from A to Z. And like I said, we know there's so many different types of yoga. And I was very interested in speaking with you, even when we met a couple of years ago, because I'm a therapist, so I'm all about anxiety and depression. And I remember us having an amazing conversation in my office. And you mentioned, I do yoga, excuse me, yoga for both anxiety and depression. So can you elaborate a little bit to us, like how do you use yoga to help treat these two types of mental illness?
Sure. So, so I'll talk about the depression, then I'll talk about the anxiety. And as I mentioned, when we had a talk in your office about
Yes,
2 years ago,
many
which was a
years
great
ago.
conversation, such a wonderful, immersive conversation. Um, so a lot of times, as I mentioned before to you, sometimes they're hand in hand, the anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
But I'll go into the depression first. Is the way that I see it in yoga, a lot of other yoga instructors see it as depression is repression of emotions.
Mhm.
Um, I'll talk about one student that I had in a group yoga class
Okay.
pre-COVID, and she had depression. I'd say pretty intense because as you know, some depression can be mild, some can be severe, some can be
Yes,
so it
absolutely.
comes in all degrees. And she had a pretty severe, but her family wasn't the type of family that would listen to her. Like they pretty much, I think, denied that she had depression.
As
And
people do, yes.
yeah, and so I empathized with her, and we would have some talks after class, and I would say with a couple of things that I'm going to mention to you today about the yoga postures and stress management techniques that are good for depression. And so that would be the repression. So the fact that her family pretty much
Yes.
denied that she had depression at all, um, made her repress her emotions. And so in the yoga world, when you repress the emotions, then they become internalized, and it blocks the throat chakra, it blocks the heart chakra, and therefore it makes the body rigid. I mean,
Yes.
just to name a few, lack of creativity. And then you go through life feeling
Yes.
like you can't express yourself with something that is happening to you or to us. And so the
Wow.
way that I work with that in terms of yoga is for the person, like bridge pose would be a wonderful example of how to open up the heart chakra and to open up the chest.
Yes.
So bridge pose is a really good example for what would be a good posture for somebody with depression, because they're opening up their throat, they're opening up their heart, they're opening up their chest, and they're breathing, right?
Yes.
So the breath, so that would be part of the repression too. So I've noticed a lot throughout the years when I work with people with depression, there's a lack of breath, or the breath becomes very rigid or repressed or shallow. And so when I work with somebody one-on-one, especially, it's more about how to help them, to teach them where the breath becomes more full, bringing the breath up to the top of their lungs, to open up their chest, like in bridge pose. So that would be one technique to help somebody with depression. Another one I worked with a gentleman up in Riverdale, and he had a pretty intense job. And he would say, I walk around with my depression all day and also my anxiety. So that was one that was hand in hand. And I taught him a very simple stress management technique where you place your right hand on your belly, your left hand on your heart center. And this is kind of something when it's onset, right on the onset of you feel anxious, you feel anxiety, and then you circle, right? You circle your hands very slowly and you breathe into your touch. So this is, I learned this in Kripalu. It's pretty unique, I
Yes.
think, from the years of different yoga classes I've been to. So Kripalu, it's a wonderful technique from Kripalu yoga. And then you breathe into your touch. So therefore, you're doing two things at once. You're breathing and you're feeling your warm touch. So therefore, it's taking you away
Wow.
a little bit, or it's refocusing the mind on the person's own healing touch, and also feeling their breath within their whole chest cavity and their stomach and their diaphragm. So on the depression side, things like bridge pose. Another one for anxiety. Another one for anxiety is eagle pose.
Okay,
So eagle pose in yoga is like that, and we
okay,
call that binding. So you do the same thing with your legs as you're doing with your arms. You're crossing them. So it's binding, and when you bind your body, your legs, your arms, and then you're breathing into that, and you're also focusing. So that's a focusing posture.
okay.
So therefore, once again, you're focusing on something else beside that thing that's that pathway of anxiety, or right. So you're
Yes.
focusing on something in front of you, and then you're binding your arms, your legs. And I've seen a lot of students have success with the pose. So those are a few techniques. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Because I was going to ask you, like, how effective is this type of treatment than, like traditional therapy per se?
I've I knew a couple of yoga instructors who are therapists, and they combine
Okay.
movement and yoga and breath and sound. And another one is sound, especially if somebody's repressing their emotions, then their throat chakras becomes blocked a lot of times. So in yoga, if you incorporate sigh, like an audible sigh, like inhaling shoulders up and an
Yes.
audible sigh, doing that enough times is inviting the person to let out that repression and opening up their voice, opening up that line of their voice and opening up their throat chakra.
Wow.
Yeah, the voice is powerful too. I mean, sounds are powerful. Yeah,
That's awesome. Because in traditional therapy, for example, we're always talking about with our clients, what I do, coping skills and finding ways to help cope with your depression or finding ways to help cope with your anxiety. And of course, breathing techniques are always something that I've always told my clients to do. But just even knowing that there is specific yoga that can also, along with traditional therapy, be used to help that person. I just think that's so valuable because a lot of my clients, I would like to say, this yoga is very popular. A lot of people take yoga classes, but I'm not sure if they're taking the right ones, quote unquote, to help to alleviate some of the symptoms that they may have. Of course, anything is better than nothing, but I
yeah,
love the fact that there are such very specific um poses for anxiety and for depression that clients can use to help alleviate their symptoms. So this is very, very good to know. As a therapist, absolutely, this is really good to know.
yeah. And
Thank you.
also, I think a big one is people who suffer depression and anxiety. Well, just to answer your question about not all styles are good. So, for example, somebody with anxiety, if
Correct.
they have too intense of a yoga class,
Mm,
especially if it's a group yoga class, it could actually raise the anxiety. So I agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, 'cause anxiety leads to all kinds of worries. Yes.
Yeah.
I really like this, and I think I know I've sent a couple of people to your direction, but I don't know if they followed through. But even hearing more about it, even from you now, I can definitely say, okay, this I think would be something that would be great in addition to, traditional therapy. Because I like my clients to move. Movement and body movement is always good for whatever symptoms that they're having, being able to breathe better. So I think this is really good as an add-on actually to traditional therapy. This is good, it's good to know. Absolutely. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, good stuff. Awesome. Um, I know that some of your interests includes, according to your bio, being coached. Tell us a little bit about how that has affected or what impact that does for you as a yoga instructor.
Sure. For me, coaching started during COVID, and it was a time where I had more time to myself,
We
as
all
you
did.
called it right before this podcast, like a reset. So it was like a reset for me too. And the brilliant part of COVID for me was being coached, and I took a few wonderful workshops. One in particular was a workshop on abundance, and now I really understand what this word abundance means. And
Yes.
for me, it's the coaching, especially, I've just started one-on-one coaching, but for me, what it is a way for me to really educate myself, to learn. I like the phrase coachable. It's a wonderful, I've learned the
Yes.
phrase probably
Beautiful.
about 6 years ago. And I was
Yes.
like, what does this word coachable mean?
Yes.
And so I can obviously say I'm coachable now. And it's a big thing for me to say I'm coachable. I had to be vulnerable to it, Radisha. And
Yes.
now that I'm coachable, it's one, like I just said, being vulnerable. So that's a part of it is for me, I love to talk, and I love to share.
Mhm.
But the whole thing about being coachable and having a coach is that listening is, for me, is like not really shutting down the talking. It's more of like listening, taking in the information, and what does that mean? It's almost like, what does that mean to me? And how can I apply that? So it's that wonderful journey of the listening very intently, and then how do I incorporate this in my life? Because for me, I love like the personal coaching that I'm starting now, because it's all about now, how will I work with other business partners?
Yes.
How will I, do retreats in the future? And how will I attract great people like you who are positive and abundant? And and how do I bring authentic people into my life? So that vulnerability and that listening is a huge one. And that it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy during COVID to switch, but there was a big transformation. Yeah.
My God, being coachable, I love that too. Because at any age, at any time, we have to say, okay, I want to learn something new. I want to do something different. And
Yeah.
without even saying that to yourself, and allowing that to happen, you wouldn't be having this amazing experience, listening, being vulnerable. Those are like hot button topics because we all listen, but we really don't. We listen to hear what we want to say at the end of the conversation. So like really gauging what that really is.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And
So
the time during COVID, that quietness gave me that ability to be like, okay, this is what listening is, right?
I really could have put a pin drop during that time, right? So yes, we had
Yeah.
to stay tuned and we had to listen. But being vulnerable, oh my gosh, that's a really, really tough one to do. That's a
Yeah.
really, really tough one to do. Opening yourself up and, allowing yourself to be hurt if necessary. Because
Yeah.
vulnerability can happen. You can allow that to happen to you. That's a tough one. I think that's tougher than listening. I don't know. But that's definitely a tough one. But oh my gosh, being coached and being coachable,
Yes.
being
Yeah.
open.
And in yoga, we refer to it as opening the heart. The vulnerability is like, that's the abundance training I took, is the heart vibrates at a very high frequency, more than the human mind. And so when I learned that, I was like, well, how do I relate that to yoga, or how does yoga reflect that in child's pose, for instance, right? Because the
Yes.
head is lower than the heart. So
Yeah.
that would be vulnerability. Yeah. So it's not easy. It's not.
Very cool. And I'm sure you're still in the process, right? Of still learning and even more, but that is so good. Another thing I want to talk to you about, also mentioned in your bio, was on forgiveness. Because that's
Yeah.
another hard and hot topic.
Yes.
Forgiveness is a hard one. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'll tell you a quick story about forgiveness, and then
Sure.
related to something else. I saw an integrative doctor, I would say about 5 years ago, and I had some anger and kind of resentment about my dad. He passed away when I was 19,
Got it.
and he was a very intuitive integrative doctor. I mean, he was a medical doctor, an integrative doctor, and
Yes.
he said to me, I didn't say anything about my father. He said, "So your father passed away?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" It was almost like a therapy session.
My
And
gosh,
so,
yes.
and so he said to me, he said, "So you still owe you still hold some anger about resentment about this, don't you?
Wow.
And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, that was, I don't know, about 25, 30 years ago. And he said, well, maybe you can forgive your father for everything. And it was that in that moment, as a therapist, you could probably definitely identify with this. But it was really that decisive second where I just said, yeah, I can. I can truly let go of that resentment and anger. And I just felt a tremendous relief, especially in my heart
Wow.
center, my heart, emotional heart, a release of like, and so that was the beginning for me of
Okay.
how do I forgive, right? It's
Yes.
not just the word, like we all know the word forgive, but how? How do I forgive? And the other part of it, I would say, is I practice Buddhism,
Yes.
and in any discussion meeting I've been to in my Buddhist practice, or any experience that I've heard someone share in my Buddhist practice, forgiveness has come up quite a bit. And that is a very big one, is if we can learn to forgive, it actually it doesn't we become not attached to the anger and rage and resentment that we hold for whoever that person is. And so I never really realized that it's this energetic,
Yeah.
whether it's the anger, the rage, the resentment, and then it really does transform,
Wow.
right? For me personally, once I
Yeah.
could let go of that anger, that rage for that person, the resentment, then
Yes.
that's the instant where it starts to shift.
That's
So
amazing. That is amazing. And forgiveness is definitely one that comes up a lot. But what you said, once you decided to forgive, you felt that stress just roll off your shoulder. And it's something I feed, and it has happened to me in my own personal life as well. Once you decide to forgive, because it's really about you letting go and releasing that, and you instantly feel better. So when clients are like, well, how do I know? I'm like, you will know. If you have truly forgiven, you will know that burden, that weight is like automatically erased off of you. And you just feel lighter and just better about life and whatever situation is around you. So letting go, you have to let go. And you will feel that, I have to say instantly. If
yeah,
you truly have forgiven, it happens right away. Because you're holding on to that stress on your shoulders. You're holding on to that stress in your body. And once you let that go, it's released. It's released.
right.
It's a beautiful thing. But again, very hard to do.
Yes. And a
Very,
person has to come to that place. They have to come to the place of like, I want to, right? Yeah.
because it can only make you into a better person.
Say
And
that
we're
again.
talking about betterment. It can only be to your betterment as a person to forgive and learn how to forgive. It can only better
Yes.
you as a person. It
Yes.
doesn't harm you or hurt you. It makes you better. It really does.
Right.
It really
And
does.
it opens up the heart to new relationships. It does so many things that I think people are just like, oh, just one thing will happen, but so many things happen.
I agree. I agree. Because yeah, the energy shifted. That energy is shifted. It's definitely shifted off you, and there's nothing else to worry about.
Right.
Awesome, awesome,
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So we're gonna do a little bit of shift here. Tell me a little bit about your art and what has inspired your work as an artist.
Sure. I'm gonna say I wrote something down because it
Sure.
really this part I'm gonna read something that I wrote about my art, and then of course if you have more questions. But I'm gonna
Absolutely.
start with this because it really encapsulates how my mind thinks about art. So
Okay.
yeah. My art gives me a great sense of adventure and excitement. When I'm doing my art, I enter into a fantastical world. This is where I can play. So and then I'll say this about my art is the sharing part of it is I've been very introverted about my art. So this is more of the coachable, this is more of how I'm being coached presently, is I've always, for whatever reason it is, have been very introverted about it, not shared it. And now, thankfully enough, and I'm so grateful for this, that I'm in a place where I really want to share it with the world. So yeah,
Very
yeah.
happy to have that. Like I said, I only recently found out you were an artist because you sent some stuff for me and I actually shared on my social media platforms. And like, oh my gosh, he does art too. This is amazing. This is
Mm.
absolutely amazing, that creative side of you. Now, how did you start out being an artist? What inspired you?
I've been doing art since about 6 years old. When I grew up
Wow.
in Tribeca, my mom, she saw that I was sensitive. She saw that I had creative skills. And so she bought me tons of art supplies. And Renisha, I would sit in my room for hours and just create and
Wow.
draw and paint. And so from that age, it was always a part of me. And then when I would went to college, I would sit in the library for hours learning about artists. It was so much fun for me. And that's going into that fantastical world and that the learning world of what is art and who are artists. And
Wow.
by doing that, I said, wow, I have a lot in common with these artists. They love adventure, they love excitement, they love to go into that, adventurous, fantastical world of their minds. Um, and then I decided to do a semester abroad in Paris, France.
Yes.
And uh, then that was like Disney World for me. Walking around Paris was better than Disney World.
Of course.
Yeah.
I love
And
Paris.
going, I mean, taking photography there was wonderful, but seeing all the beautiful architecture and having great conversations with other artists, whether performance artists or visual artists, inspired me so much. And I did a lot of night photography there, and it
Wow.
just really, inspired me and motivated me to continue. And um, and then I just really knew I was an artist. I guess it confirmed it in a way that I'm a photographer, I'm a visual artist,
Yes.
and I've done quite a bit since all during those years. And yeah.
Gosh, it's so amazing. That is, I love people who have that natural creative side, that talent. My talents are different. I don't draw. I probably can barely draw two sticks together. So I have other talents, but I love people who can use their hands and their minds to be creative in that way. There's something very special about it, very delicate about that as well. It's very precious.
I
Oh my
went to a meditation. You're gonna love this, Radisha, because I know this is about it. And I went to a meditation with my wife recently, and it was Raja Yoga, and the woman, she's an Indian woman, and she said, we're a big part of our life, we're here to play. And I love that word play.
play.
Isn't it?
Adults can play.
Yeah. And so that's how I think of my art is like you said, you love like people who could draw and and tap into the creative part of their mind. But when she said play, I was like, that's it. That for me, when I sit down with my art, it's play,
Wow.
and then if I could sell it, and I'm going to, that's wonderful too. But the first is the play. Yeah.
Love it. You're not even doing it for the part of I'm trying to make money on this. I'm doing this because I love it's my playtime and I'm going to enjoy it. And that is beautiful. Adults can play. Who knew? I love
Right.
it.
Yeah. It's
Playtime.
like it gives you that permission of like, right? That,
Yes. I
yeah.
can be messy if I want to be.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. As
Exactly.
adults, we're not supposed to do those things. And it's just an amazing way to express art. I had on a couple of weeks ago a friend of mine who's an artist in Kenya, and he described his work and what inspires him. And of course, it's completely different from us in the States, but artists have, I would say, a very similar language when it comes to inspiration and their creativity. And it's just beautiful, beautiful to hear other people talk about their art in that way. It's awesome, I think. Very nice. And you will be getting paid and sharing that work because we're going to share some also once we're wrapping up here. We're going to also have your links and stuff so people can go see what's there and purchase stuff if necessary. So
Wonderful.
yes, it's nice when your hobby is also your job. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Took a while for me. Well, I'm probably maybe I'm a light bloomer, but yeah, it takes a while to, I guess, acknowledge that or feel worthy of it. Even a better word that my hobby is my profession or transitions to a profession. Yeah.
I find that a lot of, and that's people in general, right? Even just if you're not as creative, we are always our own worst critic.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And artists can be pretty critical of themselves. It's true.
and
Yeah.
other people will look at our stuff and like, oh my gosh, that's great, it's amazing. And you're like, it is, like in that self-doubt kind of way. And we have, just learning to embrace, yes, your work can be 100% different from my work, but it's still great work in a different way. And it's all good. It's so great. You know,
Yeah.
so just building that little self energy of that self confidence of like, yeah, what we do is great work. It might look different from somebody else, but it's still great work. Still
And
great work.
also like to what you just said, Andy Warhol said it so perfectly. He's like, do you want to know me? He's like, just look at my work.
Yes. We
And
know
it's
what these paintings look like.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Great work. In its own way, great work. So
Yeah.
awesome. I am so glad you have that for you outside of your normal, 9 to 5. It's just great to have an outlet. Awesome. And I was going to ask, how has being an artist changed you? How has it changed your life, even physically and mostly mentally? How has that changed you mentally?
For me, I read a great article some years ago about artists, and I guess for the if you're going to the mentally, I was the article was all about adapting, and it was talking about how artists have the great ability to adapt. And I think it's the nature of an artist to be able to adapt. And for me, it's definitely giving me that skill set of from situation to situation in life, the ability to adapt to situations, to adapt to jobs, to adapt to situations in life. So that makes me feel calm. And calm, I like in my life, that
Calm
sense
is
of
good.
groundedness,
Yes.
centeredness, and and also that sense of play, that silliness. It's like for me, I could be a very intense person. I could be rigid in certain things. So when I do my art,
Yes.
I could have that full permission now, and always pretty much to be silly and play.
Yes.
And then it takes me away from, oh, I have to be rigid or I have to be strict with myself. And for my mental health, that's amazing. That's really an incredible thing that
Yes.
I'm proud to share and feel grateful to share. Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely your mental health, peace and calm and serenity. That's amazing words for anybody's mental health. Awesome. Did you ever see yourself teaching your work as an artist?
Um, I see I see it combined probably. I think to answer that better is I would like to, yeah, because what comes up immediately when you say that is I definitely feel in the future like I would like to do some performance art.
Yeah.
So going a little bit more into performance and incorporating my visual art
Yes.
with performance, with movement. So combining the two,
Yes.
and that's come up during COVID and it's come up pretty recently. And
Okay.
I think through that, people could learn. They could learn about movement. They could learn about the visual arts, about about light, about shadow,
Yes.
about combining visual art with movement. So teaching yoga, I feel like a lot of my creativity, a lot of my right brain and creativity comes through my teaching of yoga and Tai Chi. But
Yeah.
I want to go to another place with it, which would be more performance art. Yeah.
Yes, you have so much to offer. You have no idea. You have so much to offer. I can just see like students just, who are interested in, being an artist, just picking up on every word that you say when it comes to how do I do this? How do I lights and movements and shades? It's just also exciting. It's really exciting for people who are in that mindset and that's what they want to do. It's so exciting. And to have
Yeah.
someone who, again, teachable, right? To be open,
Yeah.
to be taught is awesome. Yeah.
That's great when I'm teaching like youth and teenagers now, and you see
Yes.
that sparkle in their eyes. You show them something and
Yes.
connect it to whatever their passion is in life, and they're like,
So,
"Oh, I could use this to become a better basketball player," for instance. So, yeah,
and even the notion that you can do this too. You can do
yeah,
this too. If
Yeah,
it's
it's
something
very
that was
empowering.
invested in you, yes, you can do this too. It's nice. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, especially this whole transition when adults, kids, youth, teenagers were all very non-social. And now
yes,
we've come to a place where we're back socializing and they're doing all these things in their life. And like you said, it becomes like, oh, I can do this. Oh, you're giving me tools so I can do this. And I can get through my emotions, whatever those are, to this place of expression
it's
and creativity.
exactly. That could be, I think, being a photographer or an artist. I mean, talk about coping skill for like anxiety or depression. Oh my gosh, amazing. And I know from history that a lot of the more famous artists, they were all anxious. Most of them were anxious people.
Yeah.
But the creativity came right through in their work. It worked for them. So just saying.
Yes.
Have to be a bad thing. That's right. That's right. That's awesome. So it's definitely has changed your life being an artist. And now I want to know, how has yoga, being a yoga instructor, changed your life on the day to day as well?
I was yoga bit instructor, but it changed my life. I
Yes.
would say it's I really like, for me, if I really go, it's the essence of it is that, and I've said this about teaching youth mostly, because I've
Yes.
been doing that for the past 9 months, is I learn a lot, Radisha.
Yes. Oh my gosh. They
It's
will
very
test you.
humbling. What's that?
They will definitely test you for
Oh,
sure.
yes. Yes, patience but
Yeah.
I've learned a lot watching them. It's, like watching them play and watching them, you know, do postures in a different way. And like I'll give them a posture, then they'll make it into partner postures. So like Picasso was asked that, like when he was in his 80s, the interviewer said to Picasso, "What do you want to do now? You've done it all. You've had all these different periods of art." He says, "I want to paint like a child again." So for
Mm,
me at 54 years old, it's
yes.
like when I'm teaching people, it's like, well, not only what can I teach, right? Because I have all these different tools in my tool chest of all
Yes.
these wonderful teachers that I've had, and I feel tremendously blessed. Like I've had the most fabulous, whether it's Tai Chi teachers or Qigong teacher or yoga teachers. Like I feel so blessed, and those experiences I'll never forget. But it's now in my point of my life, it's like, what can I learn? And it's not just learn here. It's like learn from my heart, the emotions, the spirituality, and watching the kids I teach now, the private sessions, and privately when I teach, a lot of people, some of them have Parkinson's, some of them are cancer survivors, and it's not always so easy, the teaching.
Yes.
And people think it's, oh, yoga teaching is so easy. So it's not always so easy, but when I'm in those sessions and they're challenging, whoever I'm teaching, I guess what I really take now is what what can I learn spiritually? What's going to change my life from this particular session, from this particular class? And even if it's something like patience, even if the kids I'm teaching are running around the room and it's not like teaching an adult class where they're just all standing there ready for the next posture, even if it's just patience, then yeah.
Patience is a virtue. If you learn patience, like half the battle is over. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know what I like about professions like yours also? It's a giving profession. I love
Yeah.
giving professions. There's something about that that makes my heart pump. Because I know what with my field is also the same way. And you're just a giver. And you want people to learn and take things in and just be like the best that they can be. And I can just feel that talking to you. Are a giver in that way. And it just must be so remarkable, this people with Parkinson's and things, other diseases or illnesses that people don't think they can do anything. And you're like, yeah, you have Parkinson's, but you can do this, you can do this pose. Just instilling in them that hope that
Yeah,
you're not done.
right.
Yes.
I love the way you said that. That's beautifully said. It's really true, is that you're not done. And
it. And I thought
Yeah.
you're pushing them maybe a little bit past what they think their limit would be, but nonetheless, you're giving them something new and there's hope. Yeah, I might have this thing, or this disease, this illness, whatever, but I can still do this. I can do this for myself because yoga is about you. It just embracing that body, So just giving. I love givers. It's a heart thing because it's these heart fields and these heart professions, and they're so needed. They're so
Yes.
needed. They're so
And
needed.
it does like when they say you are, transformation starts with yourself. It really is
Yes.
true. Like you can see, especially in a group setting, how it energetically it transforms.
Yes,
So
because we're not just giving, we're also learning. I learned it from one of my past interviewees. She says, I'm giving my clients all of this stuff, but I'm also learning. And
yeah,
yeah, I'm giving to you and you're giving back to me. It's,
exactly.
it's a beautiful thing.
It is. It took me many years to embrace that, but it is a beautiful
It's
thing.
a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
as to our journey, Awesome. Moving right along. This is a question I ask all of my guests. What does self-care look like for you?
What is what? I'm sorry again. Say it again.
Self-care look like for you?
Self-healing.
Self-care.
Oh, self-care.
Self-care.
Self-care for me looks like these days it looks like yeah, getting through COVID and now in the current moment really giving myself time to rest. It's more simplistic, I think.
Wow.
That's more of a simplistic answer than a complex answer. It's giving myself time to rest, giving myself time to heal, giving
Yes.
myself time to eat slower, giving
Yes.
myself time to walk slower. Um,
That's a hard one in New York City.
yeah, it is.
It is. It can be.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was at a workshop again pre-COVID, and one of the women said, "What's the woman who was holding the workshop?" She said, "What's one thing going forward in the year that you would like to do?" And my answer was like, "I would like to walk slower."
My
Like
God. Oh,
that's
easy.
mindfulness to me. It's just to be able to, yes, even though New Yorkers walk the fastest on the earth, it's a fact. It
It is a
does.
fact.
I always say that to students, and they look at me like, "Really? Like the fastest on the earth?" I'm like, "Yes, the
I
fastest."
believe it.
So for me, like the pure, just be able to walk slower and maybe walk slower in nature and like, not being able, just being in that moment, walking with my bare feet on pine needles or on the grass. And so for me, it's a more simplistic answer. I'm kind of surprising myself, but it's that's really
Yeah.
a good one for me, a good one for my nervous system and for my creativity. And when I allow myself and I really embrace that, then it enhances my creativity and it
Wow.
it builds me and I feel more whole.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
What I'm hearing is let's go back to basics.
Yeah.
So simple. Let's go back to basics. And being a New Yorker, people don't understand, well, maybe some people do, right? How different it is for us. I'll never forget one time I was in the city, I was going to the office, and I was in a mad rush. And the people in front of me, of course, they were tourists. I worked close to the Empire State Building. So of course they were like in awe. And I'm just like, I need to go to work. And it's like a typical New York mentality. And I remember going on vacation one time and I'm walking fast. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? You're on vacation. You can slow down. But it's like a conscious effort for us New Yorkers. And now I do. I've been at home working, so I'm so much slower now, and I love that. But it was a conscious effort to just slow down. Literally
Yes.
slow it down. My walking, slow that down. You know,
It does take a conscious effort. Yeah.
as a New Yorker, it's harder for us. People don't understand it's harder for us because we are in this fast-paced world routine every single day.
Yeah.
Everything is
And I
like
think
2 minutes ago, you know?
yeah. And it's like reminding the mind and reminding the breath, like you said, every couple of minutes sometimes. Yeah.
To slow down and take it in. So I'm a real advocate and champion for self-care. Self-care. Take the time to relax. Take the time to eat properly. People are skipping meals because they're on this computer all day. Take the time to just fall back. Let's go back to basics. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to
Yeah.
basics.
And it sounds basic and it sounds simple. That's why like people say Shavasana, which is relaxation in yoga. Oh,
Correct.
it's so easier just laying down. But it's the most difficult thing for people because they're with themselves, laying down, eyes closed, hopefully. But yeah,
And this
yeah,
mind doesn't want to shut off anytime soon.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't
Exactly.
want to shut off anytime soon. And that's what makes it difficult to learn that mindfulness, to shut that mind off, especially
Yeah.
during yoga. So I love that. Very simplistic, but very necessary. All of that self-care, absolutely necessary every day. Every day. I love that. We're wrapping it up here. And my last question to you is there anything else that you would love to leave our listeners with? This has been an amazing conversation already.
It has. It's been so wonderful. For me, what I'm really looking forward to is, as I mentioned to you, I've just got married recently, actually on Christmas, last Christmas. And so with a wonderful woman now. And I'm really like, I would love to end by saying I love to collaborate with my wife, and we're going to be doing retreats going forward, wellness retreats. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward because I haven't really done that in my life. So it's once again an adventure. It's exciting. We're planning to do local retreats around the New York area, around New York State, maybe neighboring states, but then also traveling. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to spending time with my wife, adventuring, teaching. We're both wellness in the wellness world and wellness realm. And I'm looking forward to getting out there in the world and sharing our gifts and the sense of spontaneity and kind of mystery. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, Jared, congratulations. Look at you surprising me on this show. Congratulations. That is amazing. Like I said before, we're never too old to learn new things. We're never too old to start new things, whether it's new relationships, marriages. Life just keeps going at any age. It's so beautiful. I am so happy for you. Wow, congratulations. Like I said before, we definitely will be posting up your contact information. When the retreats come out, please let me know if I can be a part of it, whether as a guest. That's totally fine. I would love to come out and just
I'll
be
definitely let
around
you know.
like-minded people. I absolutely love this. Congrats again. Oh my gosh,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Jared, I just want to thank you again for this being here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
for
you,
your knowledge.
Risha.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Your expertise, shedding light on, it's yoga, but it's so much more than just yoga. It really is. So I
It was
just
wonderful to share.
absolutely, I just thank you for that, for just bringing some light to yoga and what you do and how it does relate to mental health. Absolutely does. Guys, thank you again so much for listening. If you have not already liked and subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do so. There are so many more amazing guests to come to talk and topics that will change us all. And the only way to do that is to continue to view these videos, to like and subscribe so that YouTube can spit them out to those individuals who need to hear this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Have an amazing rest of your day.